Okay, guys, well done on writing and taking photos of what matters to you most. Having read through a lot of those, you guys have some really lovely things and some good ideas. Now it's time to build on those and turn those into a drawing. So I've chosen my grandmother's old camera. I had a couple of other interesting objects too that I thought would be good for drawing. But I wonder what makes these good for drawing. Um, First of all, this one would be good for to draw because it has lots of like interesting little highlights, shadows, details, shapes. But it is also a geometric shape, which actually might make it a little bit easier in some ways and harder in others. Easier because I know it's a rectangular cuboid shape, but harder in some ways because if I don't get that shape right, people will notice. So if I don't get that shape, the rectangular shape, or if I get the angles wrong or the lengths wrong, it's a little bit easier to tell. So something like a seashell would be really good to draw because if I didn't get this exact shape right, it would probably still look like a seashell. Same with the toy teapot, that might also be nice, simply because, well, it's a toy and there's a lot of different forms of teapots. Whereas the camera is a little bit less likely to have odd organic shapes or lines. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So choose an object that is appropriate for your level of drawing, but do make sure you choose something that is challenging enough for you. So here's a technique. If I chose to draw this camera here, what I've done is I've used this tool up here at the top of my screen, and I've just drawn lines. I'm going to go ahead and erase these. What I've done, I've gone ahead and just drawn lines. And to do that, I did one down the middle. I'm going to go ahead and make it red and about 3 points so I can see it. Okay, so if I click off that, you can see my line. I did it down the middle because the middle point is really a useful reference point because it's easy on your drawing. Let's pretend this here is my drawing. Okay, I would have this on real paper, but just pretend that's my drawing. It's easy for me to copy and paste this here, but on my own real drawing, it's easy for me to find the middle of my paper, right? And to draw a line right down the middle. So I'm going to do that on my photo, and I'm going to do that on my drawing, on my piece of paper. The next thing I'm going to do is I'll do the same drawing. I'm actually just going to copy this by doing Command C and Command V. And then I'm going to just go, look, it shows me on here the middle point of the photo. So I'm just going to copy it. And for my sake, I'm going to go ahead and copy it to my drawing as well. So I can see I've got middle point from the top to bottom and middle point from side to side. And that actually is almost enough for this drawing because what I want to do then is I use my pencil and I can sketch in the shape that I see in this part of the drawing. By just breaking the photograph into 4 segments, I can more easily see the different parts of the object. So I can see this part in relation to this part. I can estimate how far from the middle those things are. Okay. Another option would be to actually put a line at the top of the object or where there's a significant change. For example, there's the point at the top of the object that the camera itself ends. I'm going to do the same thing at the bottom where I'm going to draw about the same. And actually, because this is a geometric shape, this segment and that segment are close to the same. I actually am noticing this bottom one is a little bit shorter, and that's because the top part of the camera is closer to me than the bottom part. So actually, this part of my drawing is a little bit shorter than that top part of my drawing. This is called foreshortening, which is a technique that's used in drawing to show how things that are in the foreground are closer and thus larger. So closer. Remember, this is the same we learned in our perspective. Closer objects appear larger. And that's just only subtly seen here by the top. If I were to draw this square compared to this square down here, which we know is below there, this one is going to be a little bit bigger than that one. Just like this one is going to be a little bit bigger than that one. Okay, so not to get too caught up, if you choose a geometric shape, you might choose any of those methods. Another method, which I've done here on this slide, is using just a square grid on top. So you're welcome to do that. You can see I've just set up a square regardless of where each of the grids is exactly square, and I've done the same thing on my drawing. And all I would do is then when I went in to draw, let me try to draw on my screen. When I went in to draw over here, I would just compare, okay, it's about that far below that this line starts. Okay, so it's about this far below, and I'm going to start to draw my shell. Okay, but you guys should be doing this on paper, not on a and not on the computer, unless you just really like to. But you can see there I've just drawn kind of that line. Let's see, I wonder how close I got. Yeah, not very close, but you know what? Close enough. And when I get my finished drawing done, you won't know the difference. You'll go, wow, that looks like a shell. Okay, the last technique I want to show you is here. And what I've done here is I've just broken the object down into essential shapes. So you can see there's a triangle, another triangle, slightly different, and a smaller triangle and kind of a curved shape. So what I would then need to do is on my drawing, which would be on my piece of paper over here, I would then draw those same shapes and use those as my grid line. So then when I got to do my drawing on the paper, I would go, oh, actually it's got like a little bump here and it's got some lines coming in here, some shapes in here. And I could then later, when I got my drawing finished, I would just erase off these grid lines. So I guess the important thing as you're working, as you're setting up your grid lines on your drawing, that you make sure you don't press too hard. Make sure you don't draw too hard for those grid lines. As always with drawing, you want to start by sketching lightly. And remember, light to dark, large to small, those are really good things to keep in mind as you're working. Okay? Guys, have fun today. And let's make sure you ask any questions and make sure before we get started that we get your grid set up and your drawing set up so you're going to be successful. Really important that you choose a good object to draw. And if you need to take a new photo, please do so.